New Highland Park 15-year-old Viking Heart versus Bowmore 15. What are these like? How do they compare? And which should you put your money towards? Stay tuned for the Whiskey Whistle. Well, hello my whiskey people. Mark Kaufman here for Whisky Whistle on YouTube, sharing a little whiskey awesomeness from Winnipeg, the center of North America, bringing you a 2-up of 15-year-old single malt Scotch whiskies. That is the opening of a series of 15-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey reviews here on Whisky Whistle, and that is comparing Highland Park 15, their latest induction into their standard lineup called Viking Heart, versus Bowmore 15. Both of them, let's say, are moderately peated, about 15-20 ppm for Highland Park versus about 20-25 for Bowmore 15. There is, however, a big price gap here. $130 for Highland Park 15 versus about $90 for Bowmore 15. And I think that was about $150 after tax and a little more than $100 after tax here locally in Manitoba. Let's get these poured. And yes, I'm going to have a string of 15-year-old versus reviews comparing two different whiskeys. And then at the end, I'm planning on lining them all up and going through them in a, let's say, cutthroat speed style to really figure out the ranking of those, regardless of how I had scored them, because it's always different when you're comparing whiskeys side by side. All right, whoops, Highland Park 15, let's get it poured. That's a good amount, maybe a tad more. Come on, there we go. Okay, so that's a little bit more than 30 milliliters. A great amount to review thoroughly. And Bowmore 15. This is actually my second go at this review, and I had to redo it. And one reason is that, well, the reason is that, boy, one of these whiskeys really changed since opening. In other words, the neck pour was very different. And not even the neck pour, it was the second and the third pour. Very different to somewhere around mid-bottle. So that's really, really interesting. And that can be really detrimental, I would say, to the sales of a product. But I digress. So first of all, we're going to compare the color of the two whiskeys. Then we'll have a look at the legs. And after that, we'll check out the nose, the palate, and the finish. Neat. Then with water for Highland Park 15. Give it a Whisky Whistle whiskey score at the midpoint. And then go through the same process with Bowmore 15. And lastly, give it a Whisky Whistle whiskey score towards the end of this video. And then we'll have a short little comparative moment comparing these two side by side. And just checking that out one last time. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that. So the color, first of all, what do we see for color? Now, Highland Park 15 is natural color. And thank goodness now they are putting that on the labels. So at the back of the label, which I'll show you in a minute, it clearly states it's natural in color. And that is a mid-amber, maybe +1 or thereabouts. And then the Bowmore 15, this is clearly an embellished color. Of course, it does spend 3 years in Oloroso casks for finishing. But at 15 years old and that kind of color, it really doesn't compute. So for sure, we have color added there. If you have friends in Germany or Denmark, they'll tell you that that's on the back of the label. Both of them will be chill filtered. No mention of chill filtration whatsoever. Let's get into the legs of these two. We'll compare the legs here. But first of all, don't forget to subscribe to Whisky Whistle. Right there, hit that emblem. And then hit the bell, ding, ding, so that you're notified of future Whisky Whistles. And if you're enjoying Whisky Whistle and you're watching a fair bit of my content and you're enjoying what I do and the value that I provide you, why not consider helping and supporting the channel and joining the Whisky Whistle crew either on Patreon, or on buymeacoffee.com. Patreon.com/whiskywhistle or buymeacoffee.com/whiskywhistle. And in joining, you will get your name in the credits at the end of each video. So check that out. You'll also get advanced viewing of future Whisky Whistles like this one, so you'll get first crack at viewership. Last but not least, you'll get yourself your own Whisky Whistle Glencairn glass with enough support. And you might have noticed the t-shirt that I'm wearing, and I'll do a 180 again. Woohoo! Check that out. All right. This is a prototype. I think it's a little bit too big, so I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Also, I don't like this, the feel of this, and I know it's not going to wash very well. I'll make some more changes to that design before I release those, and the Whisky Whistle crew will be the first to get their own bespoke t-shirts. More on that in the coming weeks once I get that figured out. Anyway, so let's get into the legs here of Highland Park 15 versus Bowmore 15. So what do we have for legs here? I feel like the Highland Park legs started first. The Bowmore 15 seemed to be very drizzly. Although now I'm seeing some similar legs coming from the Highland Park 15. But I guess that that 3 years in Oloroso sherry casks for Bowmore did some good things for the viscosity. But having said that, I am looking at some nice leg features here with Highland Park 15, but it seems a little bit beefier for the Bowmore. Anyway, we'll see how that translates into mouthfeel. First of all, we're going to look at the Highland Park 15, as I mentioned. So the nose, let's get into that. Now, some really, really lovely, beautiful European seasoned, European oaky style sherry cask scents coming here. I'm getting some really nice gummy worms coming off of this, very much in line with my memory of some early Macallan 12-year-old releases. And there's a light, kind of flinty, slightly ashy, uplifting peat coming through this. A lot of people who are peat sensitive, though, may not really notice the peat here with the Highland Park 15 on the nose. I'm getting some unsweetened, high cocoa butter dark chocolate. So it might only be 60% cocoa, but a lot of cocoa butter. A light little bit of leather. Some nice baking spices, a little bit of chocolate cherry. So what comes to mind as a Canadian is Lowry's, what is it called again? Lowry's cherry chocolate, whatever. I don't know what the name of it. It's in a box. I've had that on the channel before. I forget the name though. Lowry's. It's gone. Anyway, so this cherry chocolate with a little bit of like fondant, you know, like the, again, another candy reference, the Cadbury's Easter egg, that white creamy sweet stuff. And a little bit of something like fresh newspaper when you get that delivered in the morning. So a very interesting nose. And I have to say that this is the whiskey that changed so much from the beginning of the bottle. And it was just so stark that I'm here again re-recording this review because it's just a totally different whiskey from what I recognized in that initial couple or three small samples that I tried from it. And stylistically, this is reminding me a lot of Hakushu and also Yoichi in its style, with that light, flinty, slightly ashy, a little bit of charcoal, a little bit of the flint, a little bit of that ash. Really, really interesting scents here. And I'm getting some sandalwood, which is very, very attractive for me. And there's a nice sweetness there. Very, very nice. And I'm salivating, and I really want to try tasting this together with you. So cheers to you. Cheers, everybody. Let's try it together. Beautiful dried fruit arrival. It's got a nice amount of sweetness in there. We have some dark raisins, some light raisins. We have a little bit of fruitcake in there, like a light fruitcake. Light is in the light color of fruitcake. And then as you are holding that in your mouth, the pepper, the peat, the flint, that charcoal, and that bit of ash begins to develop and really, really presents itself, and then follows out in the finish. And that change is happening around about the 15-second mark, which is about the amount of time that you should hold on to that on your palate before swallowing. Baked fruit pies, a raisin pie with some nice cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg on there. We have something that's a little bit smoky. Again, it's kind of a peppery flavor. It'd be like a ginger spiced, apple pastry dessert that has allowed itself to get browned nicely, and maybe baked on an iron, iron cooking sheet, and it's just given that really nice toasty flavor. But pardon me, again, people who are not really into peat, this is absolutely something that you should try, because it's really not overtly peaty. And I'm going to add about 10 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 drops of Islay spring water from Whiskey Source. I quite like these. They're a little pricey, but for the amount you need, it's in a glass container, little bottle, so that'll last a very long time. I quite like these. They're a little pricey, but for the amount you need, it's in a glass container, little bottle, so that'll last a very long time. Ooh, and this nice buttered grain note comes through. And a huge rush of sweet dried fruits. Some dried prune alongside those dark raisins and light raisins. A bit of dried pineapple. And I love how just that little puff of this ashy, charcoaly, peppery type of peat is coming through on the nose. There's a bit of a burnt sugar quality to this. The water really accentuates the sweet dried fruits. And it kind of depresses, it kind of lessens that charcoaly, flinty, ashy, peaty flavor. But as you chew on that malt, it comes back, and again, it's just a really nice, uplifting, smoky, gingery, peppery, charcoaly, flinty type of an event that's happening. The finish is quite long, quite sweet. All of those peppery, ashy, charcoaly, flinty, peaty flavors carrying through. And I think I need one more sip of this because I'm really, really enjoying this more than I thought that I would. I was pessimistic at first, and I was a little bit critical with the neck pour. So beware of the neck pour. I suggest you pour yourself a glass, let it sit for an hour, leave the bottle open, or maybe you want to decant it into a clean bottle and then decant it back. Just get a little bit of air going on. You will be rewarded handsomely with flavor rewards. But anyway, I'm really, really enjoying this, and I'm quite surprised. And I like this more than Highland Park 18. And I like it more than my favorite to date, Highland Park Twisted Tattoo, which is a 16-year-old with a lot of 17-year-old whiskey, 18-year-old whiskey in the mix. And some crazy, delicious wine barrels that were fully matured, etc., etc. Do I have a review of that? I think I do. I'll put that in the description below. You should watch that too. I like that so much I bought extra bottles of it. And I like this a lot too. I'm thinking that I'll probably have to get at least one more bottle of this 15-year-old for the whiskey bunker. So, anyway, final sip. That bit of leather mixed with the sherry, letting you know that you're tasting something that's a little bit on the older side. It's middle-aged, but it seems like it's got a good mix of ages of barrels in there. And I think we're probably at the point in time when whiskey distilleries will have to start showing to their customers why they're paying so much for whiskey now. And I think this is worth every dollar. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to give my first ever flagon hug, whiskey flagon hug. Ha 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 ha. Ooh, nice and cold. Perfect for summer. Actually, it's a great summer peaty whiskey for sure, and definitely needs a kiss. Where am I going to kiss this one? I'll just kiss it right here on the label. Mwah. Very, very nice whiskey. We'll get on to the Whisky Whistle Whiskey Score before I forget. So the Whisky Whistle Whiskey Score for Highland Park 15, what is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 92 out of 100. You heard it, 92 out of 100 is the Whisky Whistle Whiskey Score for Highland Park 15. Excellent stuff. Interesting flagon. Again, that's just entirely made of porcelain. And you can find the bottle information at the bottom. By the way, this is L0245D L21 10/08/1415. Just so you can see the bottle information. And this is a 750 milliliter bottle. Great stuff. And I'm happy with the price. 130 is about what I would expect to pay to come up with a 92-point whiskey. So well done. Excellent job, Highland Park. And quick hello to Mr. Martin Markvardsen. There we go. What can I say? Hvordan har du det? Hope you're well. Anyway, that's it for my Danish. All right, so let's get into Bowmore 15. Already poured here, sitting for about 15 minutes. Clearly a much peatier event here. It's a different peat as well, and this presents much more oceanside, marine type of a peat. Much more iodine and hospitally weird medicinal flavors coming through that peat, so that is here. But like I always enjoyed Bowmore, it's got this very interesting, fresh, foresty, pine, burning pine, pine needly type of a scent that's in that peat. And we have some very interesting Oloroso sherry casks here. Again, that's finished for 3 years. So I'm getting some nice bright red fruits, some fresh strawberries, some stewed strawberries, and there's this beautiful undercurrent of nice sweet, some nice dried, like fruit leather, strawberry fruit leather, some dried apples, sweet apples in there too. Anyway, quite a lovely nose, and I'm very happy with how this smells. But let's check out that palate. Hey, cheers, folks. Decadently sweet. Probably the sweetest Islay single malt whiskey that doesn't break the bank. Now, the only issue that I taste so far with this, and that about how I feel about this whiskey, is that for this style of whiskey, 43% does not do it justice. If it were 46, it would be show-stopping Islay single malt whiskey, and I'd be okay with paying a little more for that. The same beautiful burning pine tree, cedar, burning cedar, very lightly ashy, somewhat medicinal type of a palate that we have here. And it's sweet with all of these nice dark fruits. Also some straight up, like a dark, almost molasses type of a brown sugar. It almost has a nice kind of like a rye, Canadian rye, pure rye, 100% rye style mintiness to it. Minty, basil, very savory, very umami. Some sweet raspberry syrup. And the finish here, aside from the peat carries a long time, but the flavor of the whiskey is a medium finish. And again, it could be longer. It's long enough, especially when I think about what I paid for this bottle, which is, again, it's about 90 plus tax, about $100. It's got some nice tannins, but it's got the sweetness to push through and just make a nice sweet, sweet tart, sweet astringent, sweet, slightly bitter flavor that is quite enjoyable. I just lost my little top on there. There we go. Let's try that again. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 drops. Do you always add whiskey to your water? No, that's not right. Do you always add water to your whiskey? Do you try it at least once in a bottle and then, or twice maybe, and then decide, do I prefer this whiskey neat, or do I like it with a bit of water? Or are you like me and you like to try both ways? Although I have to admit, sometimes I get lazy And when I'm just having a dram by myself at night, I may not add any water, even if I prefer that whiskey with water, due to my own laziness. All right, anyway, let me know what you think about adding water to whiskey. But let's get into this palate. I want to check out this one after a quick agitation. And I'm getting more creamy red fruits. Surprisingly, a little bit of vanilla bean coming through. And I say that's surprising because it's hard to find vanilla as a potent flavor or smell in peaty whiskeys generally. It is softer. I'm losing a lot of that interesting peaty flavor though. I forgot to tell you about the nose with water added. I still get some dryness, but I'm losing a lot of the nose here. So it appears as though, for me anyway, bottle strength for Bowmore 15 is where it's at. It is rebounding a little bit, but and I'm getting mostly some oak originating flavors, some spices, some nice tannins. So it smells dry. It smells kind of like a cedar sauna. And interestingly, with water, the peat for the Bowmore 15 becomes more like the peat for the Highland Park. You lose some medicinal quality. You lose some of the marine-like peaty quality. And you're left with a more earthy, peppery, dirt style of peat left here. And it's missing its signature pine coney, burning pine tree type of smell that makes me a huge Bowmore fan. It does rebound, pardon me, it does rebound. However, for sure, the neat pour for Bowmore 15 is fantastic for its price. Fantastic regardless of price. Still enjoyable, but I probably won't have too many drams of this with water. In fact, I don't think any after this experiment here. So let's get on to the Whisky Whistle Whiskey score for Bowmore 15. What is that going to be, folks? It's going to be 90 out of 100. You heard it, 90 out of 100 is the Whisky Whistle Whiskey score for Bowmore 15. Needs a malt hug for sure. And I'm going to blow it a little kiss. Very nicely done to Beam Suntory. I think if we had it at 46%, and if this had no color added and was unchill filtered, I mean, it goes without saying that these two would be neck and neck. And who knows, that might even be the victor today. But anyway, 92 points for Highland Park 15, 90 points for Bowmore 15, both excellent quality. And for the price, this is a must buy for any Bowmore lover. For Islay whiskey lovers, I think this is a great value. For $130 plus tax, $150 Canadian, 92 points. It's a tad pricey, but personally, I think it's a good value, and it really presents a very unique style with that peppery, flinty, ashy, charcoaly style of peat that it's got going for it. Now, I want to compare these side by side really quick. beautiful sherry, that touch of peat coming through. And you got that nutmeggy, interesting European style of oak that's making a big, big impact on the nose here. And again, if you are a lover, like I was, of those older Highland, Macallan 12s, you need to try this for sure. And over here, we've got that foresty, piney type of peat. A little bit of medicinalness, a little bit of iodine and Band-Aid, and you know, some marine style of peat going on. And with water, I am getting what I often get is something like a toasted Danish rye bread with nice Danish butter on top. Yum. Beauty. One more sip here. Oh, I need it. It's a great whiskey. Don't be fooled by all the pizzazz. This is the one you want. I think you can skip the 18 and just stick with Bowmore 15. Oh, you need to experience that. If you're in a whiskey club, make sure that they try this with you all together. And then you may end up buying yourself a bottle, I think. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little comparison. Stay tuned for the next 15-year-old comparison, 15-year-old versus between two very interesting whiskeys. You better stay tuned. Again, my name is Mark Kaufman. You're watching Whiskey Whistle. Take care. Goodbye now.